So, hello and welcome to another episode of the Tech.eu podcast. Today, we are catching up with Fernando Matzkin, who is the Chief Business Officer for Europe for a company called Globant.
Hey,
Hi,
Robin,
Fernando.
super happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you for taking the time. What and who is Globant?
Well, Globant is an engineering and design services company, a technology professional services company that started its operations back in 2003 in Buenos Aires, in Argentina.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Right down here.
was that?
Right down here. Like I'm pointing at the
Yeah,
map.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, right on there. Exactly, exactly. And yeah, out of Buenos Aires, and also, just coming out of the worst financial crisis in the history of Argentina, which, believe me, Argentina has had many of those, but this was really bad. So, the four founders of the company got together back then in a bar with this vision of leveraging the Latin America engineering talent to provide digital services to Europe and North America. And back then it was like the boom of internet and the boom of e-commerce was just starting. So they started very early to see this very big opportunity to to do something that nobody else had done really before in the region, which was leverage the local talent uh, to provide services for the real, the top leaders in each of the industry, the most important companies in the world, in the biggest economies, North America and Europe. So they started, delivering services to a few clients. And in 2006, we acquired Google as a client, which was a big milestone for us, obviously. The very first company to provide services, digital services for Google from outside Mountain View. So we started working for Google, which credentialized our engineering capabilities and our engineering excellence, so to say. And then, the company started to grow word to mouth, evolving its services. Uh, we landed Electronic Arts as a client, then Southwest Airlines, then JP Morgan, then many high-tech companies in the valley, in Silicon Valley. So started to grow very, very quickly. I joined the company in 2009. We were back then less than 1,000 people, and now, fast forward to today, we are 28,000 people, presence in 35 countries, around 100 delivery centers. So it's really become a global company. But at its core, over the years, nothing has changed in its essence. Globant has always been a company, a professional services company in technology, who has been able to combine, the the capabilities and the way of doing things in a very different way than our competitors. Always focused on putting the consumer at the center of technology, always using technology to build engaging experiences, um, lasting experiences, in order to help our customers grow its client base, consumer base, improve the life of patients, in the case of life sciences, pharma, and hospitals, uh, make employees more productive, more engaged,
Yeah, that's
and
great.
so on and so
We're going to get into sort of the current activity soon, but I just wanted to point out
Yeah.
one of the very few unicorns to ever come out of Argentina. The first Latin American company that did an IPO in the US, I think, in 2014. You've been with the company almost 15 years, so you've seen a lot of the growth firsthand, of
Yes.
course. But as you rightly pointed out, like the focus on North America and Europe was there very, very early on. I think the first office in London was already open in 2004, a year
Yes.
after the founding of the company.
Yes.
Was there a particular playbook or a reason for sort of selecting those bigger markets early on for the company?
Uh, you know, uh, we saw the potential of one side, the internet boom. We saw the potential of e-commerce that had just started to grow and started to become popular. Amazon started around those years. Google started growing heavily around those years. So the founders saw the opportunity of growing the digital services offering and serving these large companies who they knew were going to need these services at scale, and there were not really other companies, for instance, for North America, right, offering these services from Latin America, which has tons of advantages, like not only the time zone, but the huge talent pool availability, the cultural affinity, the nearness in a way. So I would say those were the main drivers back then, and the vision stayed very valid over the years, stayed the same.
Yeah. And was it difficult for in Europe then in particular? Because I remember in those days when sort of bigger companies looked to IT partners, they would look at Eastern Europe primarily. They would look at Southeast Asia for things like outsourcing and nearshoring. How did Globant sort of become a competitive player in that field? Not being in the same time zone, sort of coming from Latin America. How quickly did that business expand, and how did you manage to do that?
It expanded very quickly. Actually, the very first client for Globant started in 2000. The very first client, sorry, was in the UK. It was lastminute.com around
Oh yeah.
2003, 2004. Yeah. So really, the story started in London, in the UK, and I guess the quality of the engineering services that we were providing, right? The way we very early on started organizing the delivery model, very different to our competitors. We came up with this approach called agile pods, under an agile delivery model, which was basically around building multi-skilled teams, taking talent from many different pockets of talent that we call studios, and combining different capabilities in one team. And this team was able to deliver any kind of digital product, an e-commerce platform, an application for the phone, for the watch, a combination of a digital and physical experience. So the way we organized our teams, the way we made these teams autonomous, very much results oriented, very much aligned to the objectives and KPIs of our clients. I'm talking about 15, 17 years ago. That really set us apart from the competition. And by the way, one of the key missions of Globant has always been reinvent the professional services space. In the industry, in the technology professional services space, things have been done the same way for many, many years, for the last 50 years. So our approach has always been do things differently from our competitors and reinvent the space. We organized technology teams, they reinvent the way we organized our company itself, how we put together different capabilities and practices around what we call studios. So it's always been very different from the get-go.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously it worked very well, considering the fact that you have now 28,000 people on the team, bringing hundreds of millions of dollars every quarter in revenue. How important is Europe as a market for the company? Can you tell us a rough breakdown on what that looks like?
Yeah, it's extremely important. It represents around 15% of the company revenues and growing. We have presence in Spain, in the UK, in France, in Germany, in Denmark, in Italy, and we are expanding very quickly throughout other markets and other countries. We're constantly looking for opportunities to expand our presence, both in business hubs and also in talent hubs, which in both cases are the same. In some others, not that much. For instance, in the case of Spain, we have already more than 1,100 Globers serving global clients in Europe, but also serving global clients in North America. So for us, it's not only a huge opportunity in terms of growth in Europe, which compared to North America, our footprint is still relatively small. which makes it, it makes it even more attractive. But also as a talent hub, places like I said, like Spain, like Portugal, obviously, Eastern Europe, Romania, Moldavia, Poland, where we have delivery centers, are extremely attractive because of its engineering capabilities, its location for Europe, and it's very easy to scale.
Yeah.
So, all in all, Europe, it's a very important market for us in both ways, business and talent.
Yeah, yeah, great answer. And you mentioned North America and the fact that the footprint here is still relatively small. That's something you know well because you used to run the North America business before you became the GM for Europe. Was that a specific choice from you, or was it just an opportunity to sort of grow within the company?
It was an opportunity to grow within the company. I've always felt very much attracted by opportunities where there was, a lot of space for growth, where the opportunities to scale up the operation were, were visible, were evident. And Europe, is one of those cases, right? While our very first client in 2004 was in London, was in the UK, over the years, I would say, most of the focus, the investment, and the energy of the company was set in North America. Until a few years ago, we landed a very important client in Spain, called Open Bank, a virtual banking platform spin-off of Santander. We developed the banking platform for Open Bank from scratch. So we were able to scale up that operation very quickly in Spain, and that was around 4 or 5 years ago. So that gives us some, refreshed energy and focus to go back to Europe, to come back to Europe and renew our investments. So now, we have presence, we have teams, we have clients. The challenge, I guess, is to go for more, right? To go after more clients, make our brand famous, build stronger and more mature teams in each of the countries where we have presence, look for new markets in Europe and also in Asia, and Australia, countries, and the Middle East, countries and markets where we also have started to grow. So all of the business leaders, we switch positions, we switch focus regions, and I've always been intrigued by the European market, by the way of doing business here, by the differences with North America. And because I had the opportunity to work in the West Coast and in the East Coast, I thought that now, coming to Europe and learn the ways here and scale up this business was going to be an amazing opportunity for me professionally and also for
Yeah.
the company.
Are there any particular differences between sort of operating in Europe with its, fragmented nature, cultural difference, language difference, and whatnot, compared to North America, where you were sort of stationed before?
Yeah, so it's what I could say. It's like obviously the complexities are clear. Like you said, languages, cultures, locations. Each country has its own characteristics, its own challenges. The clients in each country have their own expectations, and you need to be very respectful of those differences if you want to succeed and grow. So it's a little bit harder to scale compared to North America. You need to keep leadership, the right leadership, and the right local presence in each of these markets, in each of these countries. So that's one. Number two, clients are extremely sophisticated. All clients expect, a very much, a consultative approach where you talk about how technology is going to impact their business, what are going to be the new lines of revenue, the savings, the digital efficiencies that you're going to achieve. So that's where the conversations start. In North America, um, you know, clients are also very much sophisticated, but I would say, it's a little bit more transactional compared to Europe. In Europe, it's much more relationship based. You really need to earn the trust. You really need to build a relationship. You really need to prove yourself and be clear about where you have done a similar project, a similar job before for a similar client in the same country.
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
necessarily in other country, in other region. So credentializing yourself, earning the trust and the credibility of the client is very important, and that's where we are putting our focus in each country, right?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. You said you were expanding the business in Europe in terms of investment, opening new offices, building the business, and also attracting new talent. But does that strategy also include, for example, investing in European tech startups or even acquiring European tech startups down the line?
Yes, we are very active in each front. So we have three fronts we typically work on. One is the corporate development, inorganic growth, which focuses on going after companies that help us land in a geography where we are not present, or where we have little presence, or going after a company that complements us with the capability that we don't have. Those are the two key main drivers. We never go after an acquisition because of adding growth, or just because adding clients. So those are not really the drivers. Are more geographical and strategic in terms of capability. So that's one track. The second track is Globant Ventures, where we are very active looking for companies where we think it's smart to invest, and it's mostly about companies who offer products or certain services that have a clear synergy with our products and services. So that's track number one, Global Ventures. And the third one, which I would say is the newest, is the Be Kind Tech Fund, which is also an investment fund formed by Globant and a few other companies, where we look to invest in startup or small companies that deliver services or products that help minimize the negative impact of technology in society, like misinformation or many different kinds of things. And we are also very active on that front. But all in all, I would say, always our mantra, our focus is going after organic growth, is expanding our presence with the clients that are already, where we're already delivering services, or going after new clients in existing industries, in industries where we want to develop. That's always been 90% or more than everything that we do.
Yeah. Okay, that's quite clear. And what about the latest technologies? AI, metaverse, virtual reality, robotics, and whatnot. Is that also fields that you're particularly interested in as a company to pursue?
Yes, yeah, we've always been very interested in using AI and language models uh, to improve the capabilities of our developers, to improve the velocity at which they could deliver code, the quality of the code they could deliver, to improve the documentation on the code. And at the end of the day, I guess we were always looking for ways to use these new technologies to let our developers, engineers, designers focus on problem solving rather than more mundane tasks, like, for instance, documenting code and so on and so forth. So we've been both developing ourselves and investing in AI products for the last 5 years, I would say. And it's funny because a couple of years ago, or even a year ago, we would go to our clients and explain them how we were using artificial intelligence to help our engineers produce code faster and produce better code, just using the very same learnings from their own base code, their own products. And it was very hard for our clients to understand. Now, with the resurgence of these new technologies and the popularity they had, the adoption they have acquired so quickly, it's really easier than ever to explain the potential, to explain these products. For instance, one of the products where we have invested a couple of years ago is called GeneXus, which is basically, using artificial intelligence to develop multi-platform code out of just one source of code. For instance, you would learn one scripting language, very simple. You would code your solution in that language, and then in the backend, it would generate native code, let's say mobile for iOS and for Android, out of the same scripting language. So very easy to maintain, very high quality code, very consistent. Later on, we implemented generative AI on that very same product. So now you are able to tell the platform that you are, for instance, looking to develop an application for a pet care shop, right? So we would very quickly understand, okay, these are the data entities. You're going to have a customer, you're going to have a pet, you're going to have a clinical history, you're going to have locations. All of those basic characteristics are self-generated out of natural language that you would introduce in the platform. So one of the things that we set for ourselves since the beginning was to always stay curious, always look for new ways of doing what we do, for improved ways of doing what we do, and generative technologies are a great way to do that, obviously, for us and for our clients.
Yeah, well, it seems to be working out quite well for Globant. As you mentioned, you were born sort of in a downturn 20 years ago. Today, of course, we're experiencing a market downturn as well. I looked at Globant's share price really quickly, which is still twice as high as it was, at the time of the IPO. But of course, took a little bit more of a backseat in the last 2 years, like pretty much everyone else. But more in general, how is the market downturn affecting Globant's business, either in terms of getting new clients, making sure that the revenue stays consistent, and also the investments that you've made over the time in Europe?
What we have seen over the last few quarters is our clients being very cautious in the way they spend their tech dollars, in the way they make decisions, much more scrutiny on the approval process, and a little bit longer cycles of approvals, right? We haven't seen really, the demand for technology and the demand for digital products to generate new lines of revenue or to generate savings slow down in any way. That's still there, and that's something, I guess, very different to other slowdowns or recessions that we've experienced in the past. The technology needs are not going anywhere. It's just that we've seen during the 2021 and the first half of 2022 an accelerated demand in technology, right? And we've seen that in professional services companies. We've seen that in high-tech companies. And now that has come to a more natural speed, right? It has regulated itself. In our case, we are still growing at a different pace that we grew in the past. Obviously, after COVID, we grew at 60-70%, unheard of for professional services companies. Now we are in the neighborhood of 16 to 20, but still healthy, still acquiring new clients, still growing with the top companies that we've always worked with. And with this generative AI and the resurgence of these technologies, there's a renewed interest in how we can leverage these new technologies to generate savings, to generate cost optimization. That's a big driver for conversations with every client, right? It's not just about necessarily generating new business models or building new products, but rather how can they spend less to sustain the technology infrastructure they built, or how can they generate savings across the board.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense to me. Fernando, it was absolutely fantastic to learn more about Globant and also your plans in expanding in Europe and the history of the company. Super interesting. I hope to catch up with you more often in the next few months as you travel across Europe. I'm sure to build a business.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for the opportunity, and looking forward to meeting you in person next time.
Likewise. Thank you, Fernando.
Thank you, Robin. Bye-bye.